Hey everybody, today I want to show you Da's Jalapeno Pesto. Now Da was Piper's dad who passed away this August. She had been caretaking for him for the last 3 years, and this is kind of an homage to him, you know, and it's been a long year. I've had a bunch of sailing trips get canceled and didn't work out from rain or bad weather. I did have a really good sailing trip with my daughter to Ocracoke, but we did not make it to Key Largo this year, which we've been doing for the past 2 years. Anyway, let's get to this recipe. I think you're really gonna enjoy it. David is the one that got me into sailing. He took his family sailing years ago on a Morgan Out Island 28, and they sailed around Florida and lived in the Bahamas. And then Piper and I ended up doing the same thing, except we didn't do it with kids. We did it before we had kids. We lived on a boat for 3 years in Florida. And this is a wonderful recipe that David, I think he pretty much made it up. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut up a bunch of these pecans. Now, in pestos, often people use pine nuts. And, you know, pine nuts are expensive. I mean, they're good for you and they're tasty, but you can actually use different nuts. And we often never use pine nuts. We use pecans or walnuts. I'm basically gonna do all of this with a food processor. Okay, now that we got that thing running, so here's our nuts. That's gonna be one of the items. Wash your parsley. You don't wanna have sand in your jalapeno pesto. This is about 3/4 of a bunch of parsley. I'm gonna toss this parsley in first. Calavita. This is actually really good olive oil. It's kind of better than most grocery store olive oils. I'm just gonna give it a big sprinkle of that. De-seed these jalapenos. So I cut all the tops off, and then I cut them in half long ways. Now, when you work with these jalapenos, do not touch your eyes and do not touch your genitals. And try not to touch the inside seeds. Just touch that outer skin, because that is the worst thing about making jalapeno pesto, is getting your eyes burning or other body parts. It can be very unpleasant. Wash your hands when you're done with this. Wash them like 2 or 3 times. So yeah, I just cut the stems off, cut them long ways, push them aside. We're gonna do all of these. Seems like a lot of jalapenos. It is. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, jalapeno pesto, that's just gonna be like too hot. Basically, what this recipe is instead of basil, you swap it out and put de-seeded jalapenos in it. So that's gonna be the next thing we're gonna do after I'm done chopping and splitting these, is then we're gonna de-seed them. And we're just gonna use a spoon to do that. A pointy spoon is usually better. Okay, now, yeah, I like this one, nice. I'm gonna put my de-seeded stuff. Maybe this is what I'm gonna do. It doesn't really matter. You just want to scrape out those seeds, and remember, don't touch your face. After I do maybe 4 jalapenos, I'll run the blender and mix everything up. Here we go. One little teaspoon of salt. Oh, look at that. I just touched myself on the face. Not good. One like that. I'm gonna do 2 of these big cloves. Now I find that when you're messing with the garlic in the food processor, it's really not a good idea to throw the whole chunks in there. I think you should really mince it before you put it in there. Now, could I do this on my boat? I guess I could actually make this on my boat probably. I would just use my little tiny cutting board. But what am I gonna do? I don't have a sink to wash off all these vegetables, to wash my hands off. I guess I could wash it in the seawater. And then a food processor. What are you gonna do about the food processor? Now, actually, this was our little mini food processor when we lived on Delphine. And I made all of this stuff on our big boat with this little tiny food processor because it worked well with my inverter. And I could still use this on the little boat. Parmesan, that's what we need. So here's the Parmesan. I'm just gonna put like a whole cup of this in there. Big mess. You're gonna wanna scrape the sides. Let's see how it tastes. God, it's so easy. That is really good. I'll put a dab like that, spread it around on about half of it, and then just fold it in half. Just fold it in half. Fold it like 2 times. It's delicious. It's unbelievably good. This is probably one of the best batches I've ever made, actually. So there you have it, Da's Jalapeno Pesto. Oh yeah, look at that. Yep, so it makes about 1.5 jars. So it's the next morning, and I am frying an egg, which I am about to put on this piece of toast with the jalapeno pesto. So we put it on this sourdough bread that Piper makes with pesto and an over easy egg. I love this.